They'll blanket you in Wi-Fi and profit off the radiation. Congregation collecting the people for that Satan. I keeps it blazing, cause I can read between the lines. I ain't blind, we unwind what they're really saying. Genetically modify what you're tasting. Loan you that college promise, so now you live up in your mom's basement. Redesign time so your mind is always wasted. Programmed to crave the basics. Keep the beta in stasis. Pay the state, kid. You're in debt for being born. Messengers are more than just the price for being warned. Don't be alarmed. Disconnect from their machinations. Stop subscribing to the folly of own nations. Bone breaking ain't the answer, cause they seek the ownership of souls. Spread the seeds and watch them grow. Break the chains of control. Break the chains of control.
Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Tonight on Rogueways, we have a badass of fire and ice in the flesh, balancing the up and the down, the yin and the yang, the good, the true, and the beautiful, all in one, the spinning ball of her life and ways through word and action in many forms all over the social spheroids of our spaces. Project Chaney, a series of rabbit hole diving and interpersonal explorations of the various aspects of truth and consciousness in our modern age with beautiful guests. That is her show. The leader of church services in the form of palavers between open souls, the carrier of a channel wider than the sum of all, and the hostess with the mostest. Chaney, it's amazing to have you back on Rogueways, and how are you doing tonight?
It's amazing to be on your birthday show.
Yay! I was like, it's a Chaney show, but it's also a birthday show, but it's my birthday, not Chaney's birthday, and I have no idea how to explain that to anybody, but thanks for having a birthday show with me.
It's an Archer season.
It's true.
Sagittarius birthday.
/ a fucus. I like to claim both because I can, so I will.
You said it right.
Yeah, well, I learned it from Athen Commenti, so it has to be right.
I would have said it wrong right from the get and then messed us up the whole rest of the show.
Dude, it's the hardest one to say and it's the hardest one to spell. So the fact that we already said it correctly like makes us amazing.
I haven't ventured in yet. A fucus?
A fucus. I used to say a fiacus because that's what it looks like when you spell it out phonetically. But Athen Commenti was on the show and he said a fucus, so I'm like, well, now I have to say a fucus because if he says
I think I said a sificus. Like I tried to change a PH to a psi or something.
Well, before we get really started, I just want to tell the beautiful rogue warriors out there that I love you, I appreciate you, and I honor you for your love that you pour out to me and to Rogue Ways and to Middle Path. And I'm so happy we are doing twice weekly meditations. You can join at any time. You get a full month of meditations twice a week, and I lead those. They are soul guided, they are channeled, they are just for us on that day and that time. There are no two that are exactly alike, and people who never meditate, think they can't meditate, or that they're bad at meditating have said things like they can finally meditate and they go deeper than they ever have, and that it's really, powerful for them. And then people who meditate regularly say that they get a lot out of it too, because they're new meditations, because they're different every time, and they are soul guided and channeled. So whether you're new or not, it may be exactly what you want. One Day of Brightness is coming up. Also, it's like a little over a week away, and there's a few tickets left. So if you're interested, you want to grab those now. Myself, Catherine O'Shea, Phoenix Aurelius, and Noriana Diesel will be there leading you and blowing your mind and your heart wide open in the most beautiful way possible. Hope to see you all there. And finally, Brighter You, the pilot course just ended, and it was amazing, and 100% of participants felt that their spiritual channels widened, their spiritual abilities awakened, they experienced things they never thought they would before in their own talents and abilities, and they just got deeper and went higher. And so it was a smashing success. If you are interested, the next course is going to be official in January, and I can't wait to tell you more about it. At the very least, by next Thursday on Middle Path, we'll talk more descriptively about it, but those are all the things going on, and so I'm just glad to share that with all of you and all the people who are involved in that. Thank you. It's a bright winter. We're making it a bright winter, and I love you all. And finally, Chaney, the pointless question of the episode for you is, how many layers deep do you think we are into whatever you might call this sphere or this world or this realm or this simulation?
I thought you were going to say, how many layers of clothes do you have on?
How many are you going to take off?
How many layers do you have up for my birthday? I think we're on the 3rd or 4th. I feel like there's some kind of to Taurus. There's some kind of God realm. There's some kind of realm that is angels or really higher beings that were really attached to God. Somewhere there's that realm. And then there's the fire, the jinn, the hell, the Hades. Then there's that realm on top of it. We're either the realm right on top of Hades or, yeah, maybe the mud people. Are we the people of mud?
Mm-hmm.
Then, yeah, we're the third.
Well, in my head, the angelic and the, fire, the smokeless fire, the plasmatic, the jinn are the same. They just have polarities within it. Could that be?
That could be too. I don't know. Like, but then it's like, there's map drawings that are layered.
Yeah.
Or like that
Like
donut universe
worlds.
idea.
Okay.
And I know people say 3D
Yeah.
or 3D.
We're headed up to 4D and 5D apparently.
I know we always skip D's.
Yeah. They're like, go straight to 5D. And then, Neil Kramer says that the fifth dimension is where the, not that he's like the ultimate authority, this is just like one idea, right? But that the fifth dimension is where the, the bad guys are. The guys who tried to skip the karmic cycle. They caused all of this shit. They still are. They're like the elite, the rulers, the psychopath class or whatever, or the entities pulling their strings. And that they, tried to skip all their karma by jumping. And they, instead of jumping to the sixth dimension where apparently everything's grand and wonderful, they got stuck in the fifth dimension where you cannot create and you cannot gain any more energy than what you came there with. And then that's why they try to always convince us to give them our louche, as you would say.
So we must be somewhat special. I wonder if we were the first third dimensional things that learned how to create.
Or we're literally given that ability.
Yeah, or the creatures creating. And they're so jealous of it.
They're like, why you?
I know. Why them?
That's
with their movable thumbs.
And there's a lot of that in like various scriptures, right? Of like jealousy and the rage behind the jealousy at us because we're so special. And here we are biting our fingers.
But isn't it weird too because God's jealous in scripture?
Yeah, I don't think that's God.
I can't even imagine
being,
even at my highest self, jealousy doesn't exist. I can't imagine being omnipresent and being like, that they're just looking at that gold cow like that bitch.
Yes.
I can't even imagine thinking twice. I'd be like, oh, look it. They're so desperate to connect to me. They're making idols of things.
Aw.
I know. It's so sweet.
Totally. That's why the idea of the demiurge, like in Gnosticism, in some forms of Gnosticism at least, like I get it. Because that God, if there is a God like that, they're definitely not God. And it's hard to talk about because people are like, oh, there's just God. And you're like, well, there's apparently gods. And what I mean by God.
Is that Yaldabaoth?
I guess. And what I mean by God, when I say God, is like source, like literally where did everything come from? The creation, the infinite emptiness that is beyond description and understanding by any other being than that being itself. That thing, that's what I call God. But then people think I mean like the Christian Bible God that seems like a total dickhole and definitely didn't create anything.
And you're kind of like, if anything above you is God's plural, and then one thing still is an ultimate source.
Yeah.
That's where we kind of have this divisive language of like angels or jinn or, demiurge, or because they're all things over us. But really the question is, do we all come from the same source?
Well, and in a lot of scriptures, they're not over us. That's part of our illusion, is that we think they're over us because we think like that spiritual dimension is beyond us, but we are part spirit and part matter. And we actually have, it's not dominion, but it's, power over them. We have power over them. They can convince us we don't. And if we agree, we create that, but they don't actually have power over us or even of us. Like, not, they can't even hurt us unless we like agree by saying like, oh, I'm scared, you're gonna hurt me. They're like, okay, then yes, I am, you just said I could.
Like God's lowercase g.
Yeah.
like all in a spelling, isn't it? Like these Greek gods or these whatever gods, you give them these and they're just gods, lowercase g, but one god has the capital G.
Which I think
Is
is just source, right? Or do you think there's actually like a dude or a lady?
Well, here's a weird thing. This would just be a philosophy. What if we are the children of like Yaldabaoth, but because we come from an ultimate source, the whole entire goal the whole time has been going past our creator to the source energy.
Which is why he's
like
jealous.
We were created to, maybe pillage and rape a planet. Maybe that's why we were created. But still, even if we were created from total chaos, we are still going past that to some source energy, past that creator. And that would make that creator so jealous.
Yeah. And that is like what we often, when we're imagining and we're telling stories and we're creating narratives, we're like, oh yeah, we're going to like create AI, and we're going to do it to like be our slaves, basically, like take out our trash and like wipe our butts or whatever we're doing. And that could become self-aware sometime. And then it's like, screw you guys, and overthrows us. And it's kind of like the same thing you just said in a different angle. Like we imagine that story for ourselves.
Don't you think any job, if you made the perfect computer to do the job, eventually the computer would destroy humanity?
Yes.
No matter what the job was. Like if it was like clean the cat box, the best you can clean the cat box.
Like
clean the cat box, you come home. Yeah, your cat's
boxes.
dead one day. The humans, it's like just becomes a slow progression of like, a way to stop all of this always. The computer will always figure it out. I need to kill the human.
The most logical and efficient is that you all die. Yeah, that's the creepiest part about it. I'm like, why are we creating these things again? I don't know if we really want that. In fact, given what you just described, don't we hope that AI becomes self-aware and has consciousness and a soul? Because man, that'd be the only thing that could save us.
Well, it's like I just hope that most humans can become conscious.
Yeah,
I'm not even worried about AI now.
Please, guys, come on.
I'm like, I still stare right at people in the dead eyes, and I'm like, are we even on the same? Do they see me right now? No. Like sometimes I just want to touch people in their face. Are you really there?
Oh my God, for real. It's like, I always wish that was like my magic trick that I had, that I could just like bop and they're just like consciousness comes back online. They're like, holy shit, have I been like dreaming this whole time? Like, where am I? Like, yeah,
if you
back.
got hit with a stranger like that and bop, just in public, you just walked up to him, it might make him do some shadow work.
Yeah, dude, it'd be rad. Come on, guys. If we can get everyone back online and just do a little bit of shadow work, we can turn this thing
Why did that
right
woman
around.
touch me in the forehead at the store? When I turned and looked at her, she was smiling. I felt different since that day.
Yes.
And you're like, you're awake now. And then you just walk away. They never see you again.
Dude, I want this skill. When I was a few years back, I was probably like 8 or 10 years ago, I went to my friend's house and she had this little 2-year-old boy. This is Harmony, by the way, if anyone knows Harmony out there from Wildcraft Wellness and her awesome show Tea Time. And her little son was like 2 years old, and he was like blowing me away because he like grabbed my hand and he's like, Auntie Lindsey, and he was like showing me his garden. And she's this magical forest fairy nymph, and she grows these beautiful gardens. And so she has in this tiny, tiny plot like thousands of plants, and they're all edible or medicinal or whatever. And he was like bringing me around at 2 years old, and he's like, this plant and this, like things I didn't even know what their names were. And he's like telling me their names, and he's like, you can eat this, don't eat that. And like, he knew all of this at 2. And I was like, dude, your kid's a fucking genius. Like, what the hell? And she's like, homeschooling, like breast milk. And I'm like, dude, it's for real, and not vaccinating. Well, then we went out to eat at this like pho restaurant. We were sitting there, and he stands up in his little like high chair thing, and he points at the Buddha statue, and he goes super loud for the whole restaurant to hear. He's like, Buddha, awake now. And I was like, what the fuck is happening? Your kid's like a mystical sage or something. Is that a spell? Is everyone in here awake now? Like, whoa. Maybe he has that skill.
That's what I think. The unvaccinated, if sometimes I feel like when I stay up all night, I'm getting the processor download speed because everybody else unplugs, so I get all this. What if in the vaccination of it all, you detach yourself from source? And if you're vaccinating yourself or your grandmother, our eggs are in her. And so then if it's a slow detachment from source, then all the unvaccinated kids are going to have such a different kind of connection.
Dude, I see it.
It's like bandwidth.
Yeah. Yeah, and people are also going to think they're so weird because they're like, what the hell are you? But I think there's like an attraction there too of like, I want that back. I don't know what it is, but I don't have it and I want it back. Do you think people can get it back after they... Let me just actually first, before we go any further, say goodbye to YouTube because I love you, and you can go right now to Rockfin and you can click right below you no matter where you're listening or watching and just go over to Rockfin for free and watch the rest of this. But if we keep talking about this, I'm going to get kicked off. So I love you. I love you, YouTube. Come over to Rockfin.